Death, the one guest we never invite, yet it always finds its way to our doorstep. It doesn't choose by love or hate, by peace or conflict. When it comes, it calls everyone to gather, even those who once walked away. In that moment, faces blur. The ones who loved you, and even those who couldn't stand you, all come to mourn, to whisper prayers, or simply to stare in silence. The deceased is no longer more. The laugh that person had, now an echo. The presence, just a memory. And that's the cruel part. The goodbye we never really say. Just the hollow ache of knowing we'll never see that person again. Never hear his or her voice calling our name. That person leaves behind pieces in all of us. Memories too heavy to carry, and yet too precious to let go. In the end, death doesn't take one life. It leaves emptiness in many. There are promises that outlive the body. There are vows so deep, so soaked in the marrow of who we are, that even death cannot dissolve them. And sometimes, the dead remember what the living choose to forget. This is the story of Evelyn. She was young. She was bright. She loved with the kind of love that asks for nothing in return. The most dangerous kind of love there is. She had a best friend named Sophie, a woman she trusted with her secrets, with her laughter, with the soft and unguarded parts of herself that most people never get to see. And she had Lucas, who looked at her like she was the only light in a dark room. Lucas, who held her hand and made her believe in the permanence of things. Lucas, whom she loved so deeply that one night, one quiet, sacred night, she bound herself to him in the oldest way two people can be bound, with blood. They pressed their palms together and made a promise, a blood vow, and Evelyn meant every word of it. She believed Lucas did too. She was wrong. No one knows exactly when it started between Lucas and Sophie. Perhaps even they don't know. But it grew in the shadows, in the spaces between Evelyn's trust. It grew where she was not looking, fed by the warmth she gave to both of them. And then one day, Evelyn looked. She found out the way people always find out, all at once, like a door swinging open onto something you can never unsee. Her best friend, her love, together, behind everything she thought was real. What do you do when betrayal comes from both directions at once? When there is nowhere to turn because the two people who should have been your shelter are the ones who let in the storm? Evelyn broke, not slowly, not in pieces. She broke the way glass breaks, completely and without warning. And then she was gone. They say grief has a sound, a low, hollow thing that lives in the chest. But guilt has a different sound entirely. Guilt is quiet. It creeps. It finds you in the middle of the night when the world is still, and there is nothing left to distract you from what you have done. Lucas felt it. Sophie felt it. They carried it between them like something heavy and unnamed. But they did not know, not yet, that Evelyn had not simply left. She had stayed. It began with small things, the kind of things you can explain away if you try hard enough. A cold that shouldn't be there. A shadow at the edge of your vision that disappears when you turn to look. The feeling, persistent, crawling, that someone is standing just behind you. Sophie noticed it first. Of course she did. She had been Evelyn's closest friend. She knew the way Evelyn moved through a room, the particular stillness she could bring to a space. And now that stillness was back. But it was wrong. It was the stillness of something that did not belong in the world of the living. Mirrors began to trouble her. Not because of what they showed, but because of what they almost showed. A shape, a figure, a girl with sad, steady eyes, standing just at the edge of the reflection. Lucas felt it differently. He felt it as weight, as though something had settled onto his chest while he slept and refused to move. He would wake in the night with the smell of Evelyn's perfume hanging in the air of a room she had never been in. He would hear her name, his own voice saying it, without knowing he had spoken. The blood vow was pulling. Even from the other side, it was pulling, because blood does not forget. Strange things followed them. Objects moved. Lights failed at odd moments. Dreams came. Dark, airless dreams where Evelyn stood at a distance and watched them with eyes that held no anger, only sorrow. Only the terrible patience of someone who knows they have forever. They tried to pretend. They tried to go on living as though the world was still the same world it had been before. But it wasn't. Evelyn was there, in the walls, in the quiet between words, in the long seconds just before sleep. She was there, and she was not finished.
We remember you.
Desperation drives people to doors they would never otherwise open. Lucas and Sophie, bound together now by shared fear as much as anything else, sought help. They found a ritual healer, a man who walked the old roads, who knew the language of spirits and the geography of the unseen world. A man who had stood between the living and the dead before and survived. He listened to their story without flinching. And when they were done, he was quiet, for he told them that what they were dealing with was not a simple haunting. This was not a spirit clinging to unfinished business in the ordinary sense. This was a bond, forged in blood, sealed in love, and broken by betrayal. And a bond like that, he said, does not release just because you want it to, but he would try. The ritual was held at night, as these things always are. There was fire, and there was silence, and there was the healer's voice moving through prayers older than anyone in the room could name. The air changed, grew heavy, grew cold in the way that cold goes beyond temperature and touches something deeper. And Evelyn came, not slowly, not gradually. She came like something long held back, finally breaking through. They were capturing Evelyn's spirit. But the world of the dead is never silent, never still. Sophie, her soul was sent across the veil, a mistake no one expected. Her body, once guarded by life, was left unguarded, exposed, vulnerable. And in that moment of silence, something else crept in, a spirit, ancient, vengeful, malevolent, seeking a vessel. Sophie's empty shell became his doorway. Evelyn's spirit was trapped, yes, but the dead found another way. Through Sophie. They now had a link to the world of the living, not just one spirit, but many. Forgotten souls with no peace, no purpose, no mercy. This is how it began. The possession was never the beginning. It was the result of what they failed to understand.
naye nga gw'omwoyo gusosa tugukwata ate nagwo ne gugutwalayo gyali gwalina omumujjanyo
kakasanja nti omwoyo gunadde
gusobola okudda
nga kiringa ekizibu ekyo ate bw'okyogeramu
si kizibu kugenda kikolako naye.
After the possession, chaos followed. The ritual began with control. Chants, spells, ancient words meant to bind the spirit. But Sophie's body was no longer hers, and the entity within was not alone. The pressure grew, and one by one, the room fell. First the aides, then the ritual master himself, as if the spirit had drained their strength, or perhaps something else joined them from the other side. Only two remained standing, Lucas and the ritual servant. He wasn't as skilled, not as ready, but he knew the truth. If Sophie's soul wasn't saved, the dead would keep their doorway open. There was no choice. As the others lay unconscious, the servant whispered a transfer spell for Lucas to the spiritual realm to save Sophie's soul. The spirit inside Sophie's body had been resisted, but not defeated, because her soul was still lost. In the shadows of the spirit world, her body remained open, a passage the dead could use to return. And worse, the vow, that blood vow Lucas made with Evelyn, still breathed in the spiritual realm. A second link, a second gate. To stop this, Lucas had to cross over into the spiritual world. There, he found Sophie's soul, weakened, and Sam's spirit, still wandering. But the entity, the one who had taken over Sophie, was waiting. It didn't want her soul freed. It wanted her body. Back, they fought, but it was too strong. And in that moment, Lucas realized if he returned, Evelyn would follow, because their bond was written in blood, unbreakable while he lived. So he chose the one path left. He gave up his soul to seal the link forever, to bring Sophie back and leave himself behind. Sophie returned, but Lucas never woke up. The vow was broken, not by words, but by sacrifice.
What is spoken in truth returns in shadow. What is sworn in the dark never we stood where the earth was listening, where the wind carried our names. Hands joined, spirits watching as we called love by flame. You spoke the vow with a steady tongue, but your heart walked another way. The ancestors heard the cracking sound when the promise gave way. You cannot bury what was sworn before the unseen. You cannot silence what remembers everything in the shadows.